So Toll talks about, you know, having the power that, having the power and understanding how to use the power are two different things. Just because you know how, you have that power doesn't mean that, you can adequately use it, or you're just gaining power for the sake of gaining power. That plays into Hugo's storyline more, which we'll see as we progress up the tower. More, where you accept a power that, you don't understand or you can't control. So what good is it? You can't actually, if you can't control it, it controls you, in other words. And again, that plays into a larger overarching story in this game that you don't really get until we play as Toll in the third playthrough. But he's essentially trying to warn you a little bit there, saying like, hey, you can't just blindly take power, because again, in this universe with magic, sometimes you control the magic and sometimes the magic controls you. Or obviously, if you don't have a clear focus on what you want to do with yourself or your life, then you become, instead of you leading your own life, you end up following in someone else's path. It's sort of like, what's your main objective in this world? Is it, to live comfortably? Is it to gain as much wealth and power as you can? And if it's sort of the latter, where you're interested in gaining wealth and power, then you either have to be willing to take said power for yourself, or you have to forge your own path and make that power possible, like wealth-wise. And that takes a certain kind of person, that doesn't really understand the concept of defeat. Because if you feel defeated, you're not going to continue along your path. Ultimately, you're going to find something else, to occupy your time and money and effort with. But basically what I'm trying to say is, it's sort of one of those things you'll see a lot in fiction, where you'll have the guy who is essentially the philosopher, the one that has the new idea, that's different than it a lot of times borders on a taboo, like, well, and a good villain always skirts the line, you know what I mean? Like, for instance, slavery, like you might say, well, slavery, bad. Okay, great. But what if you paid people less money than you should? You pay them just enough that you get to pocket more and more of the profits, and they essentially are indebted to you or society in such a way that, they don't really have another option. You either take the $5-10 an hour, or you starve to death, sort of thing. I'm not gonna get into this concept of, well, that's capitalism, that's the economy. If people were more willing to hold out for better wages, then they would get those better wages. We're not going to talk about that right now, but what I'm more saying is that you get caught up in other people's story instead of you focusing on something you're interested in, per se. You get caught up in their story and following their philosophy on life, which a lot of times you'll see. Like, you'll see either politicians will tap into a fringe, very powerful fringe being ignored, like Donald Trump did, where they're unhappy with the way things are, and they're looking for someone. A lot of this is very, very easy for populism. They're looking for someone or something to blame. It's not themselves, obviously. It's not their fault that the situation ended up as it did. It's, it's whoever's fault. It's the immigrant's fault. You create a bad guy, and the only way to protect yourself from the bad guy is by following my ideal. And I'm I've very much been on this kick of like, think for yourself. You're welcome to take the ideas that are given to you, and you basically say, well, I had to back off here. We'll have to redo this again. So this is me saving, then this is a cut to when I'm much stronger, just so I can do this in one run rather than kind of just get effed up, because dying's just gonna set us back in terms of time. Anywho, but like I said, this concept of, instead of, your thoughts are either aligned with theirs, which, it's easy to align your thoughts with people of less than scrupulous measures, when, you're concerned about the bare necessity, or the basic necessity. Great. Oh boy. If you're not, you want to talk about the economy? Yeah, we can talk about the economy, but, that's because I have the privilege of living in a house that I'm able to afford. I'm able to feed myself on my wage. If I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I'm trying to find a way to make more money or work harder or whatever in order so that I don't feel like I'm scraping by barely, So in that regard, I am a level of, even though I don't make a ton of money, I make enough that I could pay my mortgage and pay my utilities and pay my taxes and, get to work every day, feed myself, clothe myself, and I don't have any dependents. I don't have any children or even like a wife that I'm spending, luxury money on. So all the money goes in my pocket, and then I choose to use that money however I see fit. Like whether that be, well, I want to upgrade, want to make my bathroom look nicer, or, I want to, I'm not exactly in the market for a new car, but, if I wanted to start saving up for something big or invest my money in the stock market, these are all things that, I have the freedom to do because I'm making more than I'm spending, which is a good thing. I've always sort of preached this concept of, have less debt, try to limit the amount of money that's going out, try to maximize the amount of money you're coming in, because it just makes your life easier when you're not scrambling to make sure that you're paying your car and you're paying your mortgage and you're paying, your subscription services, and you're indebted to all these different people to the point that like you have to work more, or you feel like you're barely able to scrape by. Kind of lucky I survived this area. I was at like 5 health at one point, and I picked up a health drop. So they got me back up. Otherwise I would have died or had to back off there. Getting back to the point about Hugo is this, why do you seek this power? You seek this power, because you're trying to live up to something that you maybe don't care about, but your father cares about, or you have some sort of natural talent, or you've got hard. In this case, you learn that even though everyone calls Hugo a prodigy, he's probably more of a product of his environment and his, this, they call it like tiger momism, where you're being pushed to do something because you think it'll make your parents happy and that'll make them love you more or whatever. So, like I said, Hugo's probably more of a product of that but he may also be, a good, like really apt student of the magic. But because it's really not his choice to become that strong, or to he lives without purpose is sort of the purpose. The whole story of Hugo in this game is he's living without purpose. He's trying to gain power for the sake of, you know, well, that'll make, you know, having more power makes me more, you know, like a fact, which makes me, you know, more worthy successor. But what value does that bring me? It doesn't bring me any value. It doesn't make me feel good. I'm not really living my authentic life. I'm living this fake life that, you know, my dad essentially, or my clan, family, father, whatever, is essentially dictating what I should do with my life. And a lot of the stuff is either, you know, it's based in one of the, you know, the deadly sins that they always talk about. Well, you want to avoid these 7 deadly sins, you know, pride being the biggest one, and the one that by which a lot of stuff springs from. Hugo fact, is it? This is a completely different, hey, how's it going? Then Lady Rhea, we've been looking everywhere for you. Where in the world have you been? Why did you bring the Black Pearl? Hush, I think we're surrounded. Huh? So this is, again, we're going to be getting the silver bells here to dispel these type enemies. Watch out, they're about to close in. So yeah, this obviously has a different feel than Unica, where like Rhea is trying to protect Unica, but in this version, that should do it. More like, oh hey, watch out! What the? All right, it's all right. I'll take care of them. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, you're all dead. You're all dead. He's holding a magic artifact I've never seen before. Haha, never you mind. The important thing is they're gone. You of House Fact, what do you need? I must say I'm quite impressed. So, over halfway up the tower. It's been an easy journey. Been through so much on our account. For that I apologize. So why are you here then? More? Oh, that's where. I know the Fiend has been captured and Cole has turned us against us, neither of which is news to you, I assume. I understand that you were rather close to my brother. Do you even have the slightest idea why he would betray us? I don't expect he'd hold much esteem for father or myself. There's especially no love and lust between us personally. I'm fully ready to kill him next time I see him. Let the family piece of peace. This is lifelong something captured by the enemy is possible. I'm sorry. I do have a theory, but I don't believe it would be appropriate for me to speak here. Matter of honor, you see. But I can say this much, however. He has not lost his pride. He may be fully justified in your desire to kill him, but he's not your enemy, nor is he your ally. He walks his own path. It's up to him whether or not it leads to where he wants to. Personally, I believe in him, or whatever. Ha he he ha ha. Hugo? One of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Forgive my impertinence, but I've been keeping far too many secrets. Far and see you two basically stoned in the middle of the night without even telling the 6 priests. Now you're trying to justify your the actions of a traitor, walking his own path. Listen to yourself. What path is he walking? One that concludes with demons and kidnaps goddesses? He clearly has wrapped around his little finger pretty tightly for you to come up with that. Am I supposed to accept his abuse with good humor? Hugo, I can never apologize enough for the trouble we've caused. Not just you personally, but everyone at Solomon Shrine. If I could, I would explain everything to you. I really wish I could. Especially what's going on. Exactly why we're here. But right now, this is no simple task. Here, you just take this. Here's silver bells. Silver chime. Set of chimes that grants eternal slumber. Truth be told, for you to go all the way back to Solomon Shrine, leave this matter to us. No futile request to make, so at very least, I wish you best of luck. Still in a daze from his camera late arena. So commonly, Shell, are you alright? Oh yeah, I'm most fine. What do you need? I think we figured out where Lady Fiend is being captured, held. The weird small tower called the Rados Access. But apparently the knights heard about it from Toll. He showed up and told him where to find Lady Fina, disappeared. Considering the source, we can't say for sure if this intelligence is correct or not. But I remember seeing Rados Access from the outside. It was a little about halfway up. I will find my way there. Well, the knights are headed that way too. You see them, please cooperate with them. Depends entirely on their situation. Decide to start trouble. Can't make any promises. Hugo wait. Hugo puts away the Lila shell. Damn knights, no one seems to think in here. They just do. I'm sick and tired of all this recklessness, idiocy. But at least now my suspicion is confirmed. I'm sure that the once Lady is free, I'll have to interrogate her. So there's more to this. Again, there's more to this story that's not going to be filled in until we get to Toll. You're sort of given the storyline as is with Unica and Hugo, and you just sort of accept it as is as well. We want to go to the top of the tower to purify the Black Orb, which again, when you get to Toll's story, you find out that, yeah, that is still true. We need to go to the top of the tower to, essentially seal the demonic essence within the pearl. But there's a little bit more going on as to why did they leave without telling anyone. That's the part that they keep mentioning in these campaigns, but they never really give you an answer. Well, why did you leave without telling anyone? Like I said, they explain that in Cole's story, which we'll get to. But again, the goddesses touch upon this. How can you possibly, trust my brother? He's clearly a traitor. He's on the side of the Darklings now. How does that make him a hero? And she talks about, well, he's following his own path. And while I don't know exactly where that path's going to lead him to, I have faith essentially in his character, knowing who he is and what he stands for, to have faith in him and to know that even though it appears like he is walking the wrong path, this may just be a ruse, if you will, and he may still be on our side per se. He may be acting essentially as a double agent for us, or maybe he's not. Maybe he truly has, decided that the goddesses or whatever are not worth protecting anymore, and this is his way of basically saying, well, I don't care about that anymore. And of course, Toll's character, at least from the point of view of Hugo's story, because you get so little of him in Unica's story that it's like, okay, you can tell he's very powerful and there's something going on with him and Hugo, but that's about all you get out of from Unica's story. And in this one, it's more complicated, and obviously there's more going on to it than just, well, he's part of the Darklings, and he's gained this dark power for unknown reason, because there's not really, I can't really understand why you want this power. And I'll get to another point later on when we get further up the tower as to what, the way Toll's character is framed within Hugo's story, because as I mentioned before, the storylines sort of exist in parallel to each other, and depending on who's you're playing as the main character, it sort of shapes the events around that. I don't think they run concurrent. I mean, there are certain elements that run concurrent, like Unica and Hugo land at one of the two Rhoda trees. Unica lands at the elder Rhoda tree. Hugo lands at the younger Rhoda tree. But where the story starts to split is Hugo's not initially found. You essentially make it to the as Unica, you make it to the tower first, and then sort of he's bringing up the rear. You know what I mean? And then the vice versa is true when you're playing as Hugo, is the Unica is not immediately found, and then she starts to bring up the rear. So you start fighting, you know, obviously who rescues the one character, I can't remember his name, Colin or something, you know, who rescues him. It's unlikely that he's rescued, and there's two, you know, Mask of the Eyes, and they're, you know, essentially being rescued by the same person, you know? So it's unlikely that, you know, once, you know, Hugo's done defeating, say, you know, one of the big bosses, we'll just say the centipede boss, okay? It's unlikely that after, you know, Unica's done beating it, that Hugo's coming in behind it and fighting the centipede demon again. I think that only one of them, you know, whoever beats the boss, you know, obviously your main character, that's, you know, that's where the storyline differs. Now, where certain events can continue to be the same is that, you know, trying to think of a story point that up to this point, you know, eventually you do end up at that big meeting where the sorcerers and the knights meet. They talk about, you know, well, this is what's happening in the plot. So the plot stays the same. You know, obviously Unica and Hugo, their job is the same, just to find the goddesses. One is sort of a personal thing, and the other one's more of like a, hey, the priests want to know why you left. You know, why'd you abandon them, essentially? And why did you take the Black Pearl with you? You know, that plot point stays the same regardless of who your main character is, at least between the two of them, you know. The way characters interact is different, obviously. And as I mentioned, there's other plot points that are different. You know, Unica's story focuses, her rival battle is with the guy who eventually killed her father. And Hugo's story focuses more along the lines of, well, you know, my brother's a traitor. So he's essentially, as we've already experienced, he fills that essentially the rival role that whatever his, I can't remember it now, fills, you know. And you could tell that Epona's storyline is much different in Unica's story versus this one, where you keep bumping into her, and aside from the first battle, which, you know, I got obviously decimated because I over leveled my guy, but, you know, after that she just kind of pops up randomly as like, I'm gonna get revenge by, you know, summoning these familiars that is, you know, essentially it would have been a double boss fight compared to the way you fought that boss with Unica, but you end up helping to rescue Epona, and again, that sort of shows the type of character that, you know, even though Hugo puts up a tough face, he is one of the good guys. He's just sort of being misled, you know, by the people around him who want to use his power for their own means instead of, you know, Hugo essentially is mentally weak in that he's being sort of dragged along instead of following his own path like his brother is. He's sort of doing what other people are telling him to do. But at the same time, those he feels is weaker than him, you know, he can't be persuaded by them because they're weak of mind or whatever. But this must be it. Lady Fina is allegedly being held. Sense evil being emanated, but there's no way I'm going to wait for the knights to come. I'll be on my way, so we're just gonna save here. And believe I gotta level up my stuff here. and then I'm gonna be a video cut, and then when we come back, I'll be more powerful. So as I mentioned before, this is again another one of those storyline differences where we're going to run into the same boss we did with Unica, but we're going to get a different flavor. We're going to get a different angle from... Damn, it's a trap. Haha, so nice to see you again. You. Don't know my name, do you? I must apologize for introducing myself. David, finest among Darklings, of Lord Dalus. So that's the name of your leader. Indeed, a fine leader, though none shall ever know. Though I must say, it's more pleasant surprise. I assume the Devil's Corridor would keep you away for quite some time. Hard to blame me, considering miserable defeat you suffered at your brother's hands. You're the heir to the Fact family. Savages don't have any right to speak to me as far as I'm concerned. My brother's dead to me. That's so. Seem to have at least one thing in common. I can't stand the man either. Repeatedly kills my summoned creature and takes their energy for his own. Ardeus allows it. I gladly tear him to shreds and use his entrails to feed my familiars. I jest, of course, that would be so cruel to give my darling such low-grade meat. What a sour expression you have. You and your brother do share the same thing. Yours has more personality, though. I'd say you're cuter than the two. Are you done? If you're not going to fight me, then stand aside. Eyes of Fact, such a delightful influence. Most magic items of these are rather interesting. Feel something cold, lifeless orbs feel comforting, almost as if they were made for us. What? Most stronger than the ones I gave to Epona. Show me what the Eyes of Fact can do. So instead of being like, I'm gonna kill you for Lord Dalus, in the name of Lord Dalus, she's more like, let's see how you handle this creature. Are you powerful enough to handle it by yourself, or are you going to be overwhelmed by its power? I'm very strong at this point, so if I die, it's going to be because I'm taking too much damage from these guys in the middle. Little fire attacks that they're doing. This is definitely one of those bosses where you gotta pick where you're gonna do damage, because you stand in one place for too long, he will kill you like that. At the same time, if you're doing a lot of damage to him, he will disappear and basically limit the amount of damage you do to him. So this attack's pretty devastating too, so I kind of get out of there. This is where I want to do most of my damage, right here. The one where they create the pattern where they're shooting outside of the area. So I left a bomb there, luckily, and he happened to run into it, so good for me. I think I take a step. I'm pretty sure I take a second attempt at this because I took too much damage from the little dudes. Plus, this boss battle is a little bit of luck as well, which is kind of weird. Yeah, see, I took too much damage from little bad enemies. So we're gonna fix that now. This is where I do most of my damage, which I think is sort of hilarious. I do like quarter damage right here, and then because of the nature of him already have summoned, or he has already summoned his little ad characters. Now he can go in and out of the. Yeah, this is the one I want to essentially be in the center of. I'm essentially safe in this little area for some reason. He doesn't do that attack, for instance, which is kind of would be one that would basically force me out of that circle. But for whatever reason, doesn't do it when I'm in there. So it's like the safest place you can be. This one's not too bad either. You just have to make sure that you're not going north and south. I'm gonna get out of there. So yeah, again, depending on what pattern they do, makes this more or less doable. Should be using my force field more, so like that, so I can help glide over certain things as well as negate at least initial damage to me. Yeah, I still haven't taken damage with the thing, and now that I've got zapped, now I'm taking the damage. That's what I want to do, is I want to come in here. I don't know why he just on appearing like right here where I can do damage, but yeah, that's how I beat this, is he's too predictable. Now he's dead. Well, he'll be dead in a second, so I should say. Zeva comes back, and instead of calling me a dumb bitch and wanting to kill me and then being called off by Daedalus, I get this dialogue instead. What a spectacular show! Damn you. You're a fascinating specimen, little one. Your power and the way you handle those eyes of you, you're born to be a Darkling. The hell are you trying to pull? Feisty. But I like that. Truly, you and I aren't so different at all. We're like kindred spirits. We both lust for power. We both find solace in the dark, alone. Don't try to deny it. Perhaps I should introduce you to Lord Dallas sometime. Suspect you and him would get along feverishly. Wait. Nothing like them. I can't be. Can't let go to her head. Lady Fiend's in prison. I need to keep moving. Just keep moving.